In the heart of the ancient world, where myth and reality intertwined like lovers in an eternal dance, there stood a mountain unlike any other. The mountain of flowers and fruit rose majestically against the azure sky, its peaks shrouded in mist and mystery. At its summit, bathed in the golden light of countless dawns, rested a stone of extraordinary power. This was no ordinary boulder, weathered by time and the elements. No, this stone pulsed with an inner light, as if it held within its crystalline structure the very essence of creation. For untold ages, it had absorbed the energies of heaven and earth, drinking in the ethereal key of the cosmos and the raw vitality of the world below. On a day when the sun and moon aligned in perfect harmony, the stone began to quiver. Hairline fractures appeared on its surface, spreading like a web of destiny across its face. With a sound that echoed through the valleys and sent birds soaring from their perches, the stone split asunder, and from its core emerged a creature that would change the course of history. He was small, no larger than a child's toy, with fur the color of sunlight on autumn leaves. His eyes, when they opened for the first time, held a spark of intelligence and mischief that would come to define his very being. This was Sun Wukong, though he did not yet know his name or the greatness that awaited him. The stone monkey's first act was not to cry out or stumble, but to leap. With a bound that defied his size and newness to the world, he sprang from the remnants of his stone womb and landed gracefully on a nearby boulder. His gaze swept across the lush landscape before him, taking in the verdant forests, the cascading waterfalls, and the distant mist-shrouded peaks. A grin spread across his simian features, revealing teeth as white as the purest jade. In that moment, a laugh bubbled up from deep within him, a sound of pure joy and unbridled freedom that echoed across the mountaintop. As the stone monkey explored his new world, he encountered others of his kind. The monkeys of the mountain of flowers and fruit were a boisterous and playful lot, swinging through the trees with carefree abandon. Yet, when they laid eyes upon the newcomer, they sensed something different, something special. Sun Wukong's extraordinary abilities quickly became apparent. He could leap higher, run faster, and climb with a grace that left the other monkeys in awe. But it was not just his physical prowess that set him apart. There was a gleam in his eye, a quicksilver intelligence that spoke of greatness yet to come. The monkeys, recognizing a natural leader, began to gather around him. They chattered excitedly, gesturing towards a majestic waterfall that cascaded down the mountainside. Sun Wukong understood their meaning without words. With a nod and a grin, he led them towards the thundering waters. As they approached the base of the falls, Sun Wukong's keen eyes spotted something behind the curtain of water. Without hesitation, he leaped through the spray, his form briefly silhouetted against the misty backdrop before disappearing from view. The other monkeys waited with bated breath until moments later, a triumphant cry echoed from within. Sun Wukong emerged, water streaming from his fur, his eyes alight with discovery. He had found a hidden grotto, a paradise within a paradise. Lush vegetation grew from every crevice, nourished by the perpetual mist. Fruits of every description hung heavy on the boughs, their sweet scent filling the air. The monkeys erupted in joyous celebration, crowning Sun Wukong as their king on the spot. As he stood atop a moss-covered rock, accepting their adulation, the newly minted Monkey King felt the first stirrings of a greater destiny calling to him. As the years passed, Sun Wukong grew in both stature and power. He ruled his monkey kingdom with a mix of playful charm and decisive leadership. Yet, despite the idyllic life he had carved out for himself and his subjects, a restlessness began to gnaw at his heart. On quiet nights, when the moon hung low and heavy in the sky, Sun Wukong would sit atop the highest peak of his mountain home, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. He had mastered his small domain, but the world beyond called to him with a siren song of adventure and discovery. It was on one such night that a wandering sage happened upon the Monkey King's realm. The old man, his beard as white as snow and his robes shimmering with an otherworldly light, spoke of realms beyond mortal comprehension. He told tales of immortals who danced among the stars and of secrets that could unlock the very mysteries of existence. Sun Wukong listened with rapt attention, his mind afire with possibilities. When the sage spoke of the Tao, the fundamental principle underlying all of creation, the Monkey King knew he had found his calling. No longer content with his earthly kingdom, Sun Wukong vowed to seek out the knowledge that would elevate him to the ranks of the immortals. With a heavy heart, but an unshakable resolve, Sun Wukong bid farewell to his subjects. The monkeys wept and pleaded for him to stay, but he comforted them with promises of his return and assurances that he would bring back wonders beyond their wildest dreams. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Sun Wukong set out on his quest. He traveled across vast plains and treacherous mountains, through dense forests and scorching deserts. Along the way, he encountered beings both wondrous and terrifying, each encounter teaching him something new about the world and himself. His journey eventually led him to the foot of a mountain, shrouded in perpetual mist. Here, it was said, dwelled the great Taoist sage Subhuti, master of secrets, both arcane and divine. Sun Wukong ascended the winding path, his heart pounding with anticipation and trepidation in equal measure. As he neared the summit, the mist parted to reveal a figure seated in meditative repose. Subhuti, his eyes closed and his form radiating an aura of unfathomable wisdom, spoke without opening his eyes. "I have been expecting you, Monkey King," the sage intoned, his voice like the whisper of wind through ancient trees. "Your journey to this place was written in the stars long before your birth. Are you prepared to cast aside your earthly desires and embrace the path of immortality?" Sun Wukong, for once in his life, found himself at a loss for words. He simply nodded, dropping to his knees before the master who would reshape his destiny. As Subhuti's eyes finally opened, fixing the Monkey King with a gaze that seemed to peer into the very depths of his soul, Sun Wukong knew that his true journey was only just beginning. The winds of change swirled around the mountain peak, carrying with them the promise of adventures yet to come, and challenges that would test the very limits of the Monkey King's indomitable spirit. Under Subhuti's tutelage, Sun Wukong's days became a blur of intense study and rigorous training. He learned to read the ancient scripts, to decipher the hidden meanings in nature's subtle signs, and to harness the power of qi that flowed through all living things. But Subhuti's lessons were not confined to scrolls and meditation. The sage pushed Sun Wukong to his physical limits, sending him on perilous quests to retrieve mystical herbs from the peaks of treacherous mountains and to meditate under icy waterfalls for days on end. Through it all, the Monkey King's determination never wavered, his insatiable curiosity driving him to absorb every scrap of knowledge offered. As the seasons turned and years melted into one another, Sun Wukong's power grew exponentially. He mastered the art of transformation, able to change his shape at will into 72 different forms. His agility and strength, already formidable, reached supernatural levels. Yet, with each new ability he acquired, the spark of mischief in his eyes grew brighter, a portent of the chaos to come. On a day when the clouds hung low and heavy with impending rain, Subhuti called Sun Wukong to his private chambers. The sage's eyes held a mixture of pride and concern as he gazed upon his star pupil. "You have learned much, Monkey King," Subhuti said, his voice carrying the weight of ages. "But knowledge without wisdom is a double-edged sword. I fear your insatiable nature may lead you down a path of great turmoil." Sun Wukong listened, his head bowed in respect, but his mind already racing with the possibilities his newfound powers presented. Subhuti, sensing the restlessness in his disciple, sighed deeply before continuing. "There is one final task I would set before you. In the Eastern Sea, in the palace of the Dragon King, there lies a weapon of immense power. It is called the Rui Jingu Bang, a staff that can grow or shrink at its wielder's command. If you can claim this weapon, it will be proof that you are ready to leave this mountain and make your mark upon the world." The Monkey King's eyes gleamed with excitement at the prospect of this new challenge. Without a moment's hesitation, he bowed to his master and set off towards the Eastern Sea, his heart pounding with anticipation. The underwater kingdom of the Dragon King was a marvel of shimmering coral and iridescent pearls, its beauty rivaling that of the heavenly realms. But Sun Wukong had eyes only for the prize he sought. With a combination of charm, guile, and barely veiled threats, he made his way to the Dragon King's treasure room. There, amidst countless wonders, stood a simple iron rod, no thicker than a needle. Sun Wukong's intuition told him this was no ordinary weapon. As he grasped it, the rod grew and thickened, becoming a staff of enormous proportions. The Monkey King laughed with delight, swinging the Ruyi Jingu Bang with ease despite its tremendous weight. The Dragon King, alarmed by the commotion, arrived to find Sun Wukong wreaking havoc in his palace. Pillars crumbled and treasures scattered as the Monkey King tested his new weapon with gleeful abandon. The Dragon King's pleas for restraint fell on deaf ears as Sun Wukong, drunk on his own power, declared himself the new ruler of the seas. It was only the timely intervention of the other Dragon Kings, alerted by the chaos, that prevented further destruction. They placated Sun Wukong with gifts of golden armor and cloud-walking boots, eager to see the back of this turbulent visitor. As Sun Wukong emerged from the eastern sea, resplendent in his new armor and wielding the mighty Ruyi Jingu Bang, he felt invincible. The world lay before him, ripe with possibilities. But even as he reveled in his newfound power, a new desire began to take root in his heart. He had conquered the earthly realm and delved into the mysteries of the sea. Now, his gaze turned upward, towards the celestial heavens. Why should he, with all his abilities, be content with merely mortal affairs? Surely he deserved a place among the gods themselves. With a leap that defied mortal limitations, Sun Wukong ascended towards the heavenly realm, his heart set on claiming his rightful place among the immortals. As he disappeared into the clouds, the world below held its breath, unaware of the tumultuous events his ambition would soon unleash. The stage was set for the next act in the Monkey King's grand drama, where his rebellious nature would clash with the established order of heaven itself, forever altering the balance between the mortal and divine realms. The gates of heaven shimmered before Sun Wukong, their pearlescent sheen a stark contrast to the earthly realm he had left behind. With a cocky grin plastered across his simian features, he strode into the celestial court, his every step exuding confidence that bordered on arrogance. The Jade Emperor, ruler of the Celestial Kingdom, had long observed the antics of this stone-born troublemaker. In a bid to quell the growing threat, he extended an olive branch, a position in the heavenly court. As the decree arrived, carried on clouds of shimmering gold, Sun Wukong's lips curled into a mischievous grin. The halls of heaven, resplendent in their ethereal beauty, soon echoed with the chaotic energy of the Monkey King. Appointed as the keeper of the heavenly horses, Sun Wukong's initial amusement quickly soured to disdain. The position, he realized, was nothing more than a glorified stable boy. Indignation burned within him, fueling a rebellious fire that would soon set the celestial realm ablaze. With a flick of his wrist, Sun Wukong summoned his Ruyi Jingu Bang, the magical staff that could grow to touch the heavens or shrink to the size of a needle. Its weight, a mountain in his hand, became an extension of his growing rage. In the divine orchards, where the peaches of immortality grew ripe with celestial energy, Sun Wukong found his next target. These weren't mere fruit, they were the essence of eternal life, reserved only for the highest deities. Yet in the Monkey King's eyes, they were simply his for the taking. With acrobatic grace, he leapt from tree to tree, his tail swishing behind him as he plucked the sacred peaches. Each bite was an act of defiance, juice dripping down his chin as he savored not just the fruit, but the sheer audacity of his actions. The heavens trembled, not with thunder, but with the outrage of the celestial court. Sun Wukong's laughter, now a battle cry, rang out as he bounded through the divine halls, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. Priceless artifacts were overturned, ancient scrolls scattered to the winds, and the once orderly realm of the gods was reduced to a playground for a monkey's whims. As alarms sounded and heavenly warriors scrambled to contain the intruder, Sun Wukong reveled in the mayhem. He was no longer content with a minor position. He was carving out his own place in the celestial hierarchy, one act of defiance at a time, But even chaos grows tedious, given time. As the dust settled and the immortals licked their wounds, Sun Wukong found his thoughts drifting to realms yet unconquered. Heaven had proven a trifling challenge. Perhaps the depths held more promise. With a mischievous grin and a flourish of his legendary staff, the Monkey King plummeted from the celestial heights, plunging through layers of reality until he breached the veil between worlds. The underworld, a realm of shadows and whispers, rarely saw visitors who walked in of their own accord. Yet here was Sun Wukong, striding through the gates of the afterlife, with the confidence of one who feared neither death nor its keepers. The Book of Life and Death, an ancient tome that held the fate of every mortal, rested upon a stand of blackened bone. Its pages whispered as they turned, a symphony of countless lives beginning and ending with each passing moment. Sun Wukong approached it, his golden eyes reflecting the ethereal glow of the book. With a casual flick of his tail, he scattered the attending spirits, their wails of protest fading into the gloom. His fingers, deft and sure, rifled through the pages until he found what he sought. His own name, inked in strokes that seemed to pulse with his very life force. A smirk played across Sun Wukong's lips as he plucked a hair from his fur. With a puff of breath, the hair transformed into a brush, its tip glistening with ink blacker than the void. Without hesitation, he struck his name from the book, each stroke a declaration of his defiance against the very laws of existence. As the final character vanished, a tremor ran through the underworld. The air grew thick with tension, as if reality itself recoiled from this brazen act. Sun Wukong stood back, admiring his handiwork, the empty space where his name once resided, now a testament to his audacity. But the Monkey King was not content with mere anonymity. With grand, sweeping motions, he began to write anew. The brush danced across the page, leaving behind characters that burned with an inner fire. "Great sage equal to heaven," he proclaimed, not just in ink, but in a voice that echoed through the cavernous halls of the dead. As he stepped back from the book, the realm of the dead seemed to shrink around him. He was larger than this place now, greater than the cycle of life and death that bound all other beings. With a laugh that shook the very foundations of the underworld, Sun Wukong leapt into the air, riding a cloud back to the world of the living. He left behind a wake of confused spirits and shaken rulers of the dead. But more importantly, he carried with him a new sense of invincibility. No longer bound by the laws of mortality, Sun Wukong had set himself on a collision course with the very powers that govern the universe. As he soared back towards the realm of the living, his declaration echoed in the minds of gods and demons alike. "I am Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven." It was a statement of intent, a battle cry, and a prophecy all in one. The Monkey King had made his move, and the heavens themselves would soon tremble in response. The celestial realm trembled with anticipation as the armies of heaven gathered, their armor gleaming like starlight against the backdrop of eternal dawn. The Jade Emperor, his face a mask of stern resolve, gazed down upon the gathering forces from his golden throne. The time had come to quell the rebellion of the self-proclaimed great sage equal to heaven. Sun Wukong stood atop the mountain of flowers and fruit, his golden eyes ablaze with defiance. The Ruyi Jingu Bang, his magical staff, rested casually on his shoulder, yet its weight seemed to bend the very air around it. A wild grin split his face as he watched the approaching army, their banners unfurling like rivers of silk across the sky. The battle began with a thunderous clash that shook the foundations of the earth. Sun Wukong leapt into the fray, his form a blur of fur and fury. The Ruyi Jingu Bank whirled and struck, each blow felling scores of celestial warriors. Their weapons, forged in the heart of dying stars, shattered against his stone-born flesh. Heavenly generals, resplendent in their divine armor, charged forward only to be scattered like leaves in a storm. Sun Wukong's laughter rang out across the battlefield, a sound both joyous and terrifying. He reveled in the chaos, his every movement a dance of destruction that left the armies of heaven reeling. As the battle raged on, the Monkey King's abilities were put to the test. He unleashed a flurry of transformations, shifting from a towering giant to a minuscule insect, evading attacks and confounding his opponents. His clones, born from plucked hairs, multiplied across the battlefield, each one as fierce and formidable as the original. The skies darkened with arrows and spears, yet Sun Wukong moved through them unscathed, his cloud somersaulting ability allowing him to traverse vast distances in the blink of an eye. He appeared and disappeared at will, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before retaliation could find him. Even the mightiest of heaven's warriors fell before him. The god of war, his blade singing with celestial fire, was tossed aside like a child's plaything. The thunder deity, crackling with lightning, found his bolts turned back upon him by the Monkey King's cunning. As the battle wore on, the armies of heaven began to falter. The once orderly ranks broke, celestial soldiers fleeing before the onslaught of a single, indomitable monkey. Sun Wukong stood amidst the carnage, his chest heaving not from exertion, but from exhilaration. He had challenged heaven itself and emerged victorious. Yet even as he reveled in his triumph, a shadow fell across the battlefield. The Buddha, serene and imposing, had arrived. His presence brought a hush to the chaos, a moment of stillness in the eye of the storm. Sun Wukong turned to face this new challenger, unaware that his greatest test was yet to come. The battlefield fell silent as the Buddha's presence washed over it like a wave of tranquility. Sun Wukong, still bristling with the energy of combat, found himself drawn to this new figure. The Buddha's eyes, deep pools of wisdom, met the Monkey King's fiery gaze without flinching. "Great sage," the Buddha's voice resonated, carrying the weight of eons. "Your power is indeed remarkable, but tell me, can it truly match the vastness of the universe?" Sun Wukong's laughter, sharp and challenging, cut through the air. "There is nothing I cannot do, nothing I cannot overcome," he boasted, twirling his staff with casual grace. The Buddha's smile was gentle, yet it held a hint of something that gave even the brash Monkey King pause. "Then perhaps you would accept a small wager," he proposed. "If you can leap beyond my palm, I will acknowledge your supremacy over heaven itself." With a dismissive snort, Sun Wukong agreed. The challenge seemed almost insultingly simple to one who could leap across the universe. The Buddha extended his right hand, palm up, creating a stage for the Monkey King's feet. Sun Wukong crouched, his muscles coiling like springs. With a mighty leap, he soared into the sky, a streak of gold against the azure expanse. He flew past clouds, past the moon, past the very stars themselves. The universe blurred around him as he pushed the limits of his incredible speed. At last, he reached what seemed to be the very edge of existence. 5 great pillars loomed before him, their tops lost in the mists of creation. With a triumphant whoop, Sun Wukong scrawled his name on the middle pillar, marking the farthest point of his journey. Satisfied with his victory, he returned to the Buddha, landing with a flourish before the serene figure. "I have reached the end of the universe," Sun Wukong declared proudly. "I left my mark on the pillars that hold up the sky. Surely now you must acknowledge my greatness." The Buddha's smile never wavered. "Are you certain you left the palm of my hand?" he asked softly. Confusion flickered across Sun Wukong's face, quickly replaced by disbelief as he peered closer at the Buddha's palm. There, at the base of the Buddha's middle finger, was a tiny scrawl, his own name written in his own hand. The realization struck Sun Wukong like a physical blow. He had never left the Buddha's palm. All his incredible journey, all the vast distances he had traversed, had taken place within the confines of that small space. As the Monkey King stood, stunned into rare silence, the Buddha's fingers began to curl inward. Mountains sprang up from the creases of his palm, rivers flowed from the lines of his hand. Sun Wukong found himself trapped, the once vast world shrinking around him. "For your arrogance and the chaos you have wrought," the Buddha intoned, "you shall be imprisoned. 500 years beneath the mountain of 5 elements shall be your penance." With those words, the Buddha's hand closed completely, forming the mountain that would be Sun Wukong's prison. The Monkey King, for all his power and bravado, found himself unable to escape the Buddha's grasp. As the mountain settled into place, sealing Sun Wukong within its depths, a hush fell over the celestial realm. The great rebellion had been quelled, not through force of arms, but through a simple demonstration of the true vastness of existence. And so, the Monkey King began his long imprisonment, trapped beneath the weight of his own hubris, with 5 centuries of contemplation stretching before him. Yet even in defeat, a spark of defiance remained in his golden eyes, hinting that this was not the end of Sun Wukong's story, but merely the closing of one tumultuous chapter. In the celestial realms, where time flows like silk and whispers carry the weight of mountains, Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, gazed upon the mortal world with eyes that held the depth of 1,000 oceans. Her attention was fixed on a single point, a mountain that pulsed with an ancient power, its very stones singing with the essence of a trapped immortal. For 500 years, the Mountain of 5 Elements had stood sentinel over its prisoner, the infamous Sun Wukong. The Monkey King's legend still echoed through the halls of heaven and the taverns of earth, a cautionary tale of hubris and untamed might. But Guanyin saw beyond the story, into the heart of potential that lay dormant within the trickster's soul. With a gesture as gentle as a spring breeze, she summoned forth a plan intricate as a spider's web and just as deceptively fragile. The threads of fate began to weave anew, and at their center stood a humble monk named Xuanzang, his heart pure and his resolve unshakable. This mortal would be the key, the counterweight to Sun Wukong's chaotic nature. Guanyin's voice, when she spoke, was the sound of compassion given form. "The journey to the west must begin," she decreed, and with it, the chance for redemption. Her words rippled through reality, setting in motion events that would reshape the very foundations of the world. As if in response, the Mountain of 5 Elements shuddered, its prisoner stirring from centuries of enforced slumber. Sun Wukong's consciousness, sharp as the edge of his legendary staff, began to claw its way back to awareness. The time of his release was drawing near, heralded by the approach of destiny in the form of a mortal monk. The day dawned crisp and clear, the sun painting the world in hues of promise and new beginnings. Along a dusty road that wound its way through verdant hills and ancient forests, a solitary figure made his way. Xuanzang, his robes the color of saffron and his eyes alight with purpose, walked with the measured steps of one who knows his path is long but necessary. Unbeknownst to the monk, unseen eyes watched his progress. Guanyin's presence, invisible yet palpable, guided his steps towards the mountain that loomed on the horizon. As Xuanzang drew closer, the air grew thick with anticipation, the very rocks seeming to hold their breath. It was then that the mountain spoke, its voice the rumble of continents shifting. "Who dares to approach the prison of Sun Wukong?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of centuries. Xuanzang, his heart steady despite the awesome power before him, replied with the simplicity of the truly righteous. "I am but a humble monk, seeking to free one who has been bound, that he might find redemption in service." At these words, a crack appeared in the face of the mountain, widening into a chasm from which burst forth a figure that was more legend than flesh. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, stood before Xuanzang, his fur gleaming with an inner fire, his eyes sharp and cunning as they took in the world he had been denied for so long. The two regarded each other, a study in contrasts. Xuanzang, mortal and vulnerable, yet radiating an inner strength that spoke of unshakable faith. Sun Wukong, immortal and powerful, his very presence a challenge to the natural order, yet now bound by forces beyond even his comprehension. It was in this moment, as their eyes met, that the true journey began. Xuanzang saw past the bravado and the power, into the core of loneliness that lay at the heart of the Monkey King. And Sun Wukong, for perhaps the first time in his long existence, felt the stirring of something new, respect, tinged with the faintest hint of humility. As if to seal their fated partnership, a golden band materialized, encircling Sun Wukong's head. A gift and a leash, a reminder of the path of redemption that lay before him. With this, the Monkey King bowed his head, not in subjugation, but in acceptance of a challenge greater than any he had faced before. Xuanzang nodded, a small smile gracing his features. "Then let us begin," he said simply, turning to face the west, where their destiny awaited. And so, an unlikely pair set forth, their steps marking the beginning of a tale that would be told for generations to come. The journey to the west had begun, carrying with it the hopes of heaven and the fate of an immortal seeking redemption. The road stretched before Sun Wukong and Xuanzang like a serpentine promise, winding through landscapes both beautiful and treacherous. Their journey had scarcely begun when the air around them thickened with the presence of something other, a convergence of fate that whispered of new companions yet to join their quest. It was in a place where the veil between worlds wore thin that they encountered Zhu Baji, known to some as Pigsy. Once a commander of heaven's naval forces, now part man, part boar, Zhu Baji cut a figure both comical and pitiable. His fall from grace had left him wallowing in a mire of his own making, his divine origins barely visible beneath layers of gluttony and sloth. Sun Wukong's eyes, keen as polished jade, saw through the facade to the potential that lay dormant within. With a mixture of taunts and challenges that rang with the clarity of a temple bell, the Monkey King goaded Pigsy into action. Xuanzang, ever the voice of compassion, extended a hand of friendship, offering redemption through service. And so, Pigsy rose from his sty, shaking off the muck of complacency, to join their sacred mission. His rake, once a tool of earthly pleasures, became a weapon in service of a higher purpose. Their trio became a quartet with the addition of Sha Wujing, or Sandy, a river ogre whose fearsome visage belied a heart yearning for acceptance. They found him haunting the banks of a rushing river, his past sins weighing upon him like the chains he bore. In Sandy, Xuanzang saw not a monster, but a soul in need of guidance. Sun Wukong recognized a strength that, properly harnessed, would prove invaluable in the trials to come. With gentle words and unwavering faith, Xuanzang welcomed Sandy into their fold. The ogre's mighty staff, once an instrument of terror, now became a pillar of support for their holy quest. United at last, the three disciples stood with Xuanzang, each a reflection of the journey from darkness to light. Their band was complete, a harmony of contrasts, bound by a common purpose. The path to enlightenment is never smooth, and the road to the west proved to be a gauntlet of challenges that tested the mettle of even the mighty Sun Wukong. Demons lurked in every shadow, their forms as varied as the nightmares that spawned them. Each trial peeled away another layer of the Monkey King's brash exterior, revealing depths of loyalty and determination that surprised even himself. In a valley where the very rocks wept with ancient sorrows, they faced a demon whose laughter could shatter mountains. Sun Wukong's agility was put to the test as he danced between falling boulders, his Rui Jingubang a blur of motion that sang with each strike. It was Zhu Baji's unexpected moment of bravery, a charge that belied his usually cautious nature, that turned the tide of battle. Deeper into lands where reality itself seemed to waver like a mirage, they encountered a seductress whose beauty was matched only by her deadly intent. Her illusions ensnared the senses, promising fulfillment of the heart's deepest desires. It was Sandy, often overlooked, who saw through the deception with eyes unclouded by mortal wants. His steadfast loyalty broke the spell, allowing Sun Wukong to dispel the enchantress with a flick of his magical hairs. But it was in the shadow of a mountain that scraped the very heavens that Sun Wukong faced his greatest challenge yet. A demon king, ancient and terrible, whose power rivaled that of the Monkey King in his prime, stood between them and their goal. The battle raged for days, shaking the foundations of the earth. Sun Wukong's fur was singed, his immortal flesh tested to its limits. In the heat of combat, as victory seemed to slip from his grasp, Sun Wukong found himself glancing back at Xuanzang. The monk's unwavering faith, a beacon in the chaos, stirred something within the Monkey King. it was not just strength or cunning that would win this fight, but the power of transformation, the ability to grow beyond one's perceived limits. With a roar that echoed through time itself, Sun Wukong unleashed a power born not of his godlike abilities, but of the journey he had undergone. The Demon King fell, not to the might of the great sage equal to heaven, but to the protector, the disciple, the being that Sun Wukong was becoming. As the dust settled and his companions rushed to his side, Sun Wukong stood silent, gazing at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. The trials had changed him, tempered his spirit like a blade folded 1,000 times. He was stronger now, not despite the challenges, but because of them. Xuanzang's gentle touch on his shoulder brought Sun Wukong back to the present. The journey was far from over, the Western paradise still a distant dream. But as they set forth once more, the Monkey King walked with a new purpose. Each step was a lesson, each hardship a gift, shaping him into something more than he had ever imagined possible. The road stretched on before them, promising more dangers, more growth. And Sun Wukong, once the terror of heaven itself, now embraced the unknown with the quiet strength of one who had found his true path. The first rays of sunlight kissed the ancient stones of India as Sun Wukong and his companions crested the final hill of their journey. The Monkey King paused, his transformed spirit sensing the profound significance of this moment. Before them lay a vista of temples and monasteries, bastions of wisdom nestled in a land steeped in spirituality. Xuanzang stepped forward, his robes whispering against the earth, eyes alight with reverence. The air around them seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, carrying the distant chants of monks like a welcoming embrace. Sun Wukong exchanged glances with Pigsy and Sandy, seeing in their eyes the same mix of awe and anticipation he felt. As they began their descent toward the sacred site, each member of the group felt the weight of their journey and the promise of enlightenment that awaited them. As they entered the grand temple, the scent of incense enveloped them, carrying with it the weight of centuries of devotion. Here, amidst the flickering light of 1,000 candles, lay the object of their quest, the sacred Buddhist scriptures. Sun Wukong's heart quickened, remembering the battles fought, the demons vanquished, and the lessons learned on their arduous journey. With trembling hands, Xuanzang accepted the scrolls from the head monk, his face awash with joy and relief. Sun Wukong watched, a small smile playing on his lips, as he realized that the true treasure was not the scriptures themselves, but the profound change they had wrought in him and his companions. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, the group set their faces westward once more. The return journey to China stretched before them, a path now familiar, yet still fraught with danger. Sun Wukong took point, his keen eyes scanning the landscape for threats, the Rui Jingu Bang held loosely in his grip. The scriptures, carefully wrapped and protected, rested on Xuanzang's back, a physical reminder of their spiritual burden. As they traversed mountain passes and forded raging rivers, the group faced each challenge with a unity born of their shared trials. Where once Sun Wukong might have leapt into danger with reckless abandon, he now moved with measured grace, his actions tempered by wisdom and compassion. Days blended into weeks, and weeks into months. The changing seasons painted the world around them in vibrant colors, the lush greens of summer fading to the fiery reds and golds of autumn, then to the stark beauty of winter's embrace. Through it all, they pressed on, their resolve unshaken. As they neared the borders of their homeland, a final test awaited them. A fearsome demon, more terrible than any they had yet encountered, rose up to bar their path. Its roar shook the very foundations of the earth, and its eyes blazed with unholy fire. But Sun Wukong stood firm, his companions at his side. In that moment, he understood that this battle was not just for the scriptures, but for the very essence of their journey. The triumph of enlightenment over ignorance, of compassion over cruelty. With a battle cry that echoed through the ages, Sun Wukong led the charge, his every move a testament to the growth he had undergone. The demon fell before their combined might, not just defeated, but transformed by the power of their unwavering spirit. As the dust settled, Sun Wukong gazed at his companions, seeing in their eyes the same profound change he felt within himself. They stood on the threshold of their homeland, forever altered by their epic quest, ready to bring the light of wisdom back to China. As the first rays of sunlight kissed the familiar soil of their homeland, Sun Wukong and his companions crested the final hill overlooking the imperial city. The golden roofs of the palace glinted in the distance, a beacon calling them home after their long and arduous journey. The air was thick with anticipation, carrying the scent of blooming cherry blossoms and the promise of completion. Xuanzang led the way, his steps light despite the weight of the scriptures on his back. Behind him, Pigsy and Sandy walked with newfound dignity, their forms no longer burdened by past sins, but uplifted by their shared quest. And there was Sun Wukong, the once rebellious Monkey King, now a picture of serene strength, his eyes reflecting the wisdom gained through countless trials. As they entered the city, crowds gathered, their whispers growing to a roar of jubilation. The tale of their journey had preceded them, and now the people clamored to catch a glimpse of the heroes who had braved unimaginable dangers to bring back the sacred texts. Petals rained down upon them, a fragrant tribute to their perseverance. The group ascended the steps of the imperial palace, each step a reminder of how far they had come, both in distance and in spirit. The great doors swung open, revealing the emperor himself, resplendent in his royal attire, his face a mask of awe and gratitude. In the grand hall of the palace, Xuanzang reverently presented the scriptures to the emperor. As the sacred scrolls were unrolled, a hush fell over the assembled crowd. The words contained within seemed to glow with an inner light, promising wisdom and enlightenment to all who would seek it. Sun Wukong stood back, watching as the fruits of their labor were finally revealed. He felt a profound shift within himself, as if the last piece of a great puzzle had fallen into place. The raucous Monkey King of old was gone, replaced by a being of deep understanding and compassion. As the emperor bestowed honors upon them, Sun Wukong and his companions shared a look of mutual understanding. They knew that the true reward for their journey was not in earthly accolades, but in the transformation they had undergone. In that moment, bathed in the golden light streaming through the palace windows, enlightenment descended upon them. It was not a flash of lightning or a clap of thunder, but a quiet dawning of ultimate truth. Sun Wukong felt his spirit expand, encompassing all he had been and all he had become. The heavens themselves seemed to open, and a divine radiance filled the hall. The voice of the Buddha, gentle yet powerful, resonated through the air, proclaiming Sun Wukong's final transformation. No longer the Monkey King, no longer even the great sage equal to heaven, he was now to be known as the victorious fighting Buddha. As the divine light enveloped him, Sun Wukong felt himself rising, not just in body, but in spirit. He saw the long arc of his existence, from his birth from stone, through his rebellious years, to the journey that had changed everything. Each moment, each trial, each lesson learned had led him to this pinnacle. His companions, too, were embraced by enlightenment, their forms shimmering with celestial light. Together they ascended, taking their places in the pantheon of Buddhist deities. Sun Wukong, once the trickster, the rebel, the fighter, now stood as a symbol of the journey from chaos to enlightenment. As the vision faded and the mortals in the hall blinked in wonder, the legend of Sun Wukong was complete. His tale would be told for generations to come, a story of redemption, of the power of change, and of the eternal possibility of enlightenment. The Monkey King had completed his greatest journey, not just across land and sea, but across the very expanses of the soul. And so, Sun Wukong, the victorious fighting Buddha, took his place among the stars, a guiding light for all those who would follow the path, from ignorance to wisdom, from rebellion to protection, from chaos to enlightenment. As we close the book on Sun Wukong's epic tale, we're reminded that our past does not define our future. May you, like the Monkey King, have the courage to rewrite your own destiny.